Recording in progress.
Good evening. The time is 6:01 p.m. and I would like to call to order the Board of Directors meeting for today, Wednesday, June 17th. We are located at Avis headquarters at 1999 Harrison Street, Suite 2300 in Oakland, California, 94612 in the Altamont Conference Room. Members of the public wishing to make a comment this evening can do so by either using the raise hand feature in Zoom or *9 if you're joining through the telephone, or if you're here in person, you can present a card to our clerk. Tonight, we are going to take a moment with roll call to confirm remote locations. So we're going to go ahead and take roll call with a focus on confirming our remote locations. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Alameda County. Albany.
Here.
Berkeley.
Present.
Dublin. Emeryville.
Present.
Can you please confirm your remote location?
Oops. Sorry about that. Yes.
can-
Clipper Club.
Can you please confirm your remote location?
Clipper Club, 5 Captain Drive, Emeryville, California.
Thank you. Fremont.
Present, 4917 Nelson Terrace, Fremont.
Great, thank you. Hayward. Lathrop. Livermore. Newark. Oakland.
Present, 1100 Webster, Oakland.
Thank you. Pleasanton.
Present.
San Joaquin County. Stockton.
Present. 501 West Weber Street, Building 1.
Thank you. Tracy.
Present.
Union City.
Here.
Community Advisory Committee.
Present.
San Leandro.
Present.
Piedmont.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Wonderful. For those who are able, please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We are now moving to public comment, and this item is reserved for persons wishing to address the board on any AVA-related matters that are not otherwise on this meeting agenda. Public comments on matters listed on the agenda shall be heard at the time that matter is called. As with all public comment, members of the public who wish to address the board are customarily limited to 2 minutes per speaker and must complete an electronic speaker slip. I may increase or decrease the time allotted depending on the number of speakers. Clerk, do we have any hands raised or speakers in the room for our public comment period?
There are no hands raised, and there are no hands raised in the attendee area.
Great. And I'm just going to check with our remote locations. If at any time during the meeting you have a member of the public who wishes to participate by making a comment, please use your raised hand feature there at that location. Okay, seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and close public comment, and I'm going to move on to our closed session public comment. Tonight, we do have a closed session item number 5, and this would be the opportunity for any members of the public to comment on that item.
There are no hands raised.
Okay, I don't see any hands raised in our remote locations. And is there anyone in the room wishing to make a comment? Seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and close closed session public comment, and we're going to move to closed session that is in a different room. I should let our CEO tell us which way to walk to head to that closed session, and we probably will be in there for at least, I would say, 45 minutes to an hour. So if there's anything you need during that time, please bring it with you. And for those online, there's a separate link to join us in the closed session.
Thank you. Unmute.
Right. Don't screw
Okay, we are back here in open session. I feel like we've got a little echo in here. Okay. We are now moving on to agenda item number 6, which is report out of closed session, and there is nothing to report. Okay, we are moving on to our consent agenda. This includes items 7 through 11. I am going to ask first if we have any public comment on any of these agenda items, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 at this time. If you're joining us remotely and you have a comment on one of those items, please raise your hand. Do you see any comments, clerk?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Daniel Franco, you're recognized for 2 minutes.
Hello, I do not have an agenda, so I'm not sure which of the agenda numbers to refer to, but I'm specifically commenting today on the issue of taking money away from the funds that need it. And I spoke in the earlier session a couple of weeks ago.
Okay, so
some of you
I'm
heard
sorry
me.
sorry to interrupt you, but I think what you're referring to is the budget agenda
Yes.
item.
Is
Yeah,
this
so
the
that's going to
appropriate
be,
time for that comment?
so if you could hold those comments, that is actually agenda item number 14. So we'll-
14, thank you.
Yes, yes. Okay. So checking with our clerk to see if we have any other public comment at this time for the items on the consent agenda, which include the approval of the minutes, contracts entered into, this year's third quarter financial statements, a PFM financial advisors contract, and a Fourth Amendment renewing Smart Bidder master agreement with Ascend Analytics LLC.
There are no hands raised at this time in the room
Okay.
or in the attendee area.
Great. Looking at my colleagues, do we have any questions or comments on any of the items on the consent calendar? I'm looking around the room. I see no hands raised. I'm looking online. I see no hands raised. So we'll go ahead and entertain a motion at this time.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, so moved by San Leandro, seconded by the Supervisor Alameda County. Let's go ahead and do a roll call vote.
Thank you. San Leandro?
Aye.
And Alameda County?
Aye.
Albany?
Yes.
Berkeley?
Aye.
Dublin? Emeryville?
Aye.
Fremont?
Aye.
Hayward?
Aye.
Lathrop? Livermore?
Aye.
Newark? Oakland?
Aye.
Pleasanton?
Aye.
San Joaquin County? Stockton?
Yes.
Tracy?
Aye.
Union City?
Aye.
And Peapod.
Aye.
The consent calendar is approved.
Wonderful. Thank you. We are now moving on to agenda item number 12, which is our CEO report.
Okay, as you pull that up, got a number of items here in the report for this month. As soon as it brings that up, I will dive into things, starting with the typical update of our recent subcommittee meetings. Our last executive committee meeting was held on June 3rd. We reviewed a number of topics, including energy prepayment financing, which is also an action item on tonight's agenda, an introduction to asset ownership, and an update on the budget, which is also on tonight's agenda. And we also had a closed session on the CEO performance evaluation. The next XCOM is on Wednesday, July 3rd at 3 p.m. That's its typical time. We also had a finance administration and procurement subcommittee meeting that was on May 27th. We reviewed the Q3 financials, which was on consent, our energy prepayment financing transaction, as well as the budget. And the next meeting is on September 9th at 3:30 on Wednesday. We also had an MRL, Marketing, Regulatory, and Legislative Subcommittee meeting last held on Friday, June 12th. Members received an update on our California legislative session, an update on the results of the Healthy Communities pilot in more detail than was previously provided, and an overview of the power content label and some of the regulatory changes that have occurred on that reporting document. Next MRL subcommittee meetings on Friday, September 18th at 10 a.m. Next update I wanted to share was related to GPTW, stands for Great Place to Work. And we received that certification. I wanted to share that news. This is the third consecutive year of that recognition. Coincidentally, that organization is actually headquartered in this building with us, but it is a nationally recognized certification. We love local. That's as local as it gets. I can't say what floor they are on, but they're in this building. And it's a survey of our employees. It's a trust index survey and a culture questionnaire. This year, we had 85% of our employees say Ava is a great place to work, and that's compared to the national sort of average of 57%. We really lean into sort of the mission-driven aspects of our organization. We have really well-aligned staff and have done really well with retention. So this is a good reflection of that in our continued work to recruit people that are very aligned to the priorities and work of our organization. Next, I wanted to share some updates on some new renewable energy projects that have come online. We refer to these sort of as our long-term projects because these are new projects, new steel in the ground that we're getting built. So there's a few projects to highlight coincidentally. The first one is called SunZia, and that is one of the largest renewable energy projects in U.S. history. It's a 3,500 megawatt wind project based in New Mexico and also has a 550-mile transmission line associated with it, covering parts of New Mexico, Arizona, and delivering into California, specifically directly into CAISO. We are an off-taker for a total of 250 megawatts. It's split between what you see referred to as SunZia North and South. A project of that size, of course, has sort of different portions of the project. There are a number of CCAs that are off-takers there. We are one of the largest. And just really excited for that project to have come online. That project will in total serve about 1 million American households with clean energy. And it does also help us specifically satisfy some procurement obligations coming from the CPUC out of a 2026 related midterm reliability obligation that's referenced there. I know that we try to do local as much as we can, local resources within our service territory, certainly local within the state of California. This is a great example of where we do need to look more broadly regionally, both to get the scale of what we need to serve our customers, but also very importantly to help diversify our energy portfolio, given how much solar we have here. The smaller amounts of wind that we have a different load profile than the wind that comes from New Mexico. So it blends in really well to diversify the sort of financial risk that our portfolio has, because there's a lot of coverage there in the evening ramp, which is quite different from typical solar generation, of course. Nice, some pictures there, and also I'll just note that we had a ribbon cutting just yesterday there in New Mexico. I didn't attend, but our Chief Customer Officer Annie did and helped to represent us there. It was very well attended. The next project I want to share was called Alpal. That's on the other end of the spectrum, perhaps. It's a 5 megawatt solar project paired with battery that is located in Tulare County, California. It was developed by RWE Clean Energy, is also part of our 2026 midterm reliability obligation. So bringing that in as a smaller piece to help fulfill some of the resource adequacy obligations. And then the last one, you can flip to the Tumbleweed here. Tumbleweed is a battery project, is an 8-hour battery project that is very unique. There are some specific procurement order obligations related to long duration storage. So this helped satisfy our long duration storage obligation. This was a 125 megawatt project developed by Rev Renewables. We were an off-taker where we did a battery toll agreement on 50 megawatts, and actually CC Power, which is a joint powers authority representing 9 CCAs, of which we are actually a member. They did a separate agreement for 75 megawatts. So we happen to have put this agreement in place first, which is why we're not part of that contract technically. But 8 hours is very unique. It is critical for reliability in California. It's also critical in order to help balance the renewable energy that we have specifically, much of that coming from solar. So really want to sort of applaud that project coming online. And we recently were able to attend that ribbon cutting as well. So it's been a great month of new projects coming online. You can scroll just a little further. We do have an overall table of all of the projects that have come online. We certainly have more coming online in the coming years, but this is what's online currently. About 900 megawatts of a mix of solar and wind generation, and then nearly 400 megawatts of battery storage capacity that are listed out. And you can see, of course, that has come on a very staggered basis since we have launched as an agency. You can scroll a little further, and I want to talk about some local small projects. And this is related to a recent ribbon cutting we had on our very first DAC GT solar project. DAC GT stands for Disadvantaged Communities Green Tariff, and that is a California state program where we're able to provide lower cost renewable energy for customers on that particular tariff. This first project was in East Oakland. We did a ribbon cutting on June 5th to help sort of celebrate that milestone of that project coming online. It's the first of 5 projects in that portfolio. That first portfolio totals about 7 megawatts and will serve about 3,000 customers. And through that green tariff, we'll be able to lower their bills by about 20% and give them access to 100% renewable energy. So really, really excited and proud about that. That is the first site out of a 5-site portfolio. Next projects will be in San Leandro, Hayward, and the city of Tracy. There are 2 projects actually in the city of Tracy. And we actually have an RFO that just closed that we're in the evaluation period on for additional megawatts and projects for that program. So looking to grow that first phase of 7 megawatts to about 18 megawatts and serve nearly 8,000 customers. So really excited about that program. Really appreciate our chair, our vice chair attending that. Council Member Brown as well, representing City of Oakland. We were able to have some speakers from the state Senate, California State Senate, Senator Arreguín, who we know as a former board member of our agency, as well as Assembly Member Mia Bonta. So a great occasion to get together and celebrate some wins. So wanted to acknowledge that. You can scroll a little bit more. So the next topic I wanted to briefly touch on was related to heat pump water heaters. This is a topic that's getting a lot of discussion and attention lately, particularly in the Bay Area. And we have had some recent public comments on this topic. So we want to just give a little bit of a summary on what activities we've had there recently and really over the last number of years. So highlighting first and foremost, between 2020 and 2025, so over a course of about a 5-year period, we had an active partnership with BayREN, Stop Waste, and a number of other Bay Area CCAs where we were administering $1,000 installation rebates to contractors, specifically related to heat pump water heaters. That was a pretty efficient program. It's a really good program that we're able to sort of work collectively and collaboratively with other entities and specifically other CCAs. It doesn't have quite as much sort of brand recognition since it's not sort of an AVA direct-to-customer program. It's where we're really working with BayREN and Stop Waste to issue those incentives, but nonetheless, really helpful for the market. We were able to install 663 heat pump water heaters through that program. Maybe a few interesting takeaways from that. One is that we actually saw a significant decline in the demand of that program in the last year. And so we actually used less than half of the funding that was allocated to that program. That was somewhat surprising. We did represent nearly half, so about 44% of the total installations across the Bay Area Air District within our territory. And of course, maybe the most notable point and concerning point, quite frankly, is that the cost increased from about $5,500 in 2020 to just over $9,000 in 2024. So we saw a 60% cost increase, which is not going in the right direction. We want to see those costs lower, of course, due to lower OEM costs, lower installation costs, lower labor costs, all of those things. So we're taking a step back there to really evaluate, what is there to learn from this particular incentive program to improve upon it. We, of course, are well aware of the Air District's upcoming anticipated rulemaking that is anticipated to go into effect in 2027, though there's, of course, very active discussion on the exact timing and some potential exemptions related to that rulemaking. So we want to be really conscious of what that looks like. We've collaborated very closely with the Air District and other CCAs over the last couple of years on that rulemaking to provide them input on what we've seen in the market, some of the friction points, customer concerns, just some of the electrification challenges and hurdles that we see from a permitting, contractor, electric panel capacity element, all of these things. So it's been a really good collaborative effort with the Air District, though I certainly want to state very upfront that that is not an AVA-related rulemaking, that is an Air District rulemaking, but we are trying to be collaborative and help facilitate as much learning from that process as possible to make it the best experience it can be for consumers and customers. The last thing I'll note on if you flip to the next page, please, Adrian, we do have other sort of collaborative efforts with other CCAs to look at other ways to facilitate different programs to support this process across permitting, contractor incentives, direct to customer rebates, financing solutions. So that's a pretty active process. We've kind of divided and conquered with other CCAs to think about how to innovate and come up with different programmatic ideas. So more to come there. Again, recognizing that there's been a lot of interest here of late, wanted to provide this quick summary. You can keep on scrolling. This is our typical list of upcoming community events. I won't read through those, but really excited to be in the summer season where we see a lot of activity there. Can you see put our tent out there and help to engage and inform our customers. And then the last page here, you can keep on scrolling, is just a typical update that we've been providing on our launch to unincorporated San Joaquin County. So in May, we did our enrollment of that first phase of customers, which is the bulk of customers there. All of that went smoothly. We've seen a participation rate of about 92%, so an opt-out of about 8%. That opt-out rate is a little bit higher than what we see across our service territory average, but not concerning, I would say, but did want to note that specifically. We will see going forward now for their solar customers specifically, because they have a particular annual true-up timeframe. We're going to stagger enrollments for those customers over the course of next year every 2 months. So we're beginning that process as well. Those tend to be more energy engaged customers. So looking for that process. And the last bit there is just a little snippet of some of the advertising and marketing and communications that we've been putting out there just to continue to stay in front of our new customers there. And that is it on the CEO report.
Great. Thank you. Do we have any questions at this point in time? Yes, Director Rush.
Just a quick one. On the heat pump water program. So you said, because there was a sharp decline in demand, leaving approximately 880,000 in unclaimed incentives. Just want to be like, so what happens with that unclaimed incentive?
It is within our local development
So it
fund
just stays
balance.
there.
So it's in that, we'll
Great.
cover that in the budget, but it is there.
So it'll be
and
available
is-
for other programs.
Exactly.
Great.
And we've kept that in the sort of line item categorization of building electrification to be deployed in future program purposes.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, yes. Oh, yes. Director Jordan. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Amazing report. As somebody who's not here very often to see these projects coming online and what's in the works, I very much appreciate it. On the heat pump water heater and the air district, I asked some of the locals in my city who were following that if the rule would allow something that some contractors had done, because a lot of water heaters were replaced at time of failure. And so some contractors have essentially a set of loaner gas water heaters. Their impression was that the rule would not allow deployment of those even for, a 1 month time period. I don't know if that's what you understand or what the agency understands, but I certainly would put in a plug for trying to have them allow that, so it makes the uptake smoother for people.
Yeah, I'll just say we're not formally a part of the rulemaking itself. We've sort of advised air district staff and leadership on what we've seen in terms of the market and some of the friction points, and the idea of making sure there is as much preparation going into this process, because we can't have customers going without hot water for an extended period of time, and thinking about lower income customers and some of the pain points of these high installation costs, as well as the idea of sort of loaners in order to ensure that people, if they need some other types of home remodeling to allow for heat pump water heaters, how do we reduce the friction and the pain points, the costs of those? So we're certainly conscious of that. With that said, we're not actively a part of that formal rulemaking or the exemption process. So I wouldn't want to comment on whether, that's likely or not to.
Yeah, certainly understand that. As one to encourage since you're in those conversations, encourage bringing that up.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions at this time? Yes, Director Marquez.
Thank you for the report. I believe I recall our kind of average opt-out rate outside of San Joaquin County. Is it 5%?
That's about right. Yeah, we're about 95% participation rate. So yeah, that's about right.
Okay. And then in the future, when we receive the chart, and now I'm losing it, but it's basically all of our current projects online. You do a great job of identifying the project, the technology, start of delivery, but I'm wondering in the future when we get this chart, can we also add the location of where these projects exist?
Absolutely. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, and I believe our Vice Chair has a question.
Just very quickly, in terms of the data on cost, where could I find that data on the actual delivered cost?
Are you speaking to PPAs or speaking to heat pump water heaters?
Thank you very much. the heat pump water heaters where you talk about it went from 5,500 to 9,000.
And you're asking me where would we?
Yeah, where, like if I was a person in the public, where would I go and know that that's true?
I think that would be through your contractor, typically speaking. That's representing all in costs for the equipment itself, the installation, the permitting, all of that. So that's not AVA related cost whatsoever.
But
Just
does
what we're seeing. in the
Bayren
market.
have that information? Does Stop Waste have that information? Do we have? Like,
Maybe
how-
I'll let
literally how would
JP
we?
comment on that. He's
Thank you.
more of a resident expert on this program and some of the details.
Yeah, just briefly. So we administered that through Stop Waste and Bayren, and that was done through provider Energy Solutions, who captured the data. That was self-reported from contractors, to Howard's point. So that's what we got back from them. What was cost of the purchase as well as total installed costs. And that information was then also rolled up into some of the tech data that was reported out kind of on statewide incentives. So there is resources for that, but getting the individualized data, like we got that because we provided incentives.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Director Traeger.
Yeah, thank you. Just a quick question in regard to the drop off in demand. Is there any information correlating that to increases in cost, or were there any other factors that may have been like, do we have visibility into the reasons why?
Yeah, I'll say first of all, just as a reminder, this is of course pre-rulemaking. So this is customers themselves sort of going out there and installing this without any sort of regulatory forcing function there. I think a part of that is cost related. You can see that the costs are high to install this. I think that's part of our follow-up diligence, is to better understand why is that. You know, again, the cost increase itself is an alarming factor. It's a pretty significant amount, and we really want to understand what's driving those costs, but also understanding the customer experience and why is that leading to sort of a demand drop off. I don't know if there's any other comments to add, but yeah.
Okay. At this point, we're going to turn to public comment. Do we have any public comment on this CEO report?
Yes. Jessica Tovar, recognized for 2 minutes.
Jessica Tovar with the Local Clean Energy Alliance. I just wanted to say that getting feedback and actually like data from the experiences of launching such programs would actually be very useful, not only to this agency, but to some of our organizations who do a lot of this work. And I want to just reiterate, and this was similar with the Healthy Communities program, where there was a lot of households that didn't take full advantage of the switch from the gas range to the induction. And really, it's been proven that doing this work in collaboration with community-based organizations who work in the communities where you're trying to do these installs is helpful. So I would like to see an emphasis on really thinking through how to work with community organizations to facilitate the education, the outreach, and the completion of the install. And then I think it's important to have also, published data. I think these are like all lessons learned, and you're also doing pilots that are like sometimes first out the gate, right? And so these are opportunities for learning. And just to share that Local Clean Energy Alliance is an active member, founding member of the Building Energy Equity and Power, which is a statewide network of environmental justice organizations doing building electrification. So just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Any other comments at this time?
There are no hands raised in the attendee area. There's no hands raised in the room.
Okay, and I don't see any hands raised online either. So bringing it back to the board, I am just going to make a comment. I attended the Prologis Solar Project ribbon cutting in East Oakland, and I just wanted to thank my colleagues, Director Brown and Vice Chair Gonzalez, as well as our CEO, Howard Chang, for representing our agency so well with the speeches that were made at that event. I just want to appreciate the time and energy you all took to prepare such thoughtful comments, and I was really, really proud of our agency. at that event. So thank you all so much. And thank you to the staff who were involved in making that event a success as well. Any other comments at this time? Yes.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to make a comment, which is something I've learned over my time on AVA, is that when we do these programs for enhancing a building, a community, whatnot, it's interesting. Pleasanton has a similar program to help residents improve specific areas of their homes. But the lesson that I'm learning quickly, and I think may help us as we go forward, is each time we show up, the conditions are not uniform. They are very customized, specific challenges. And so I think we've learned that through the stovetop program, principally the most. And I think we did workshops in the past or something to help us realize that and design the projects. And so I'll just lend some support to the concept of, how do we realize that every opportunity we have is a unique, customized one. And so we don't have the resources to do all of them, but how do we still support and provide equal opportunity to support wherever they start at, right? So I'll just leave it there. Thank you very much.
Okay, Director Trigo.
Thank you. I am probably going to just tee off from that comment and say, I just want to appreciate over the past several weeks after we received some comments about, programs related to rules 9.4 and 9.6, particularly 9.6. Been spending some quality time discussing this with staff and really appreciate the transparency. And one thing I have been learning, as I've testified in front of the Bay Area Air District a couple of times in support of implementation of these rules, this is a tough issue in the absence of funding from external sources. It is going to take a regional approach. It is going to take regional funding streams. It is going to take regional partnerships and collaboration. And so what I have come to learn is each CCA specializes in particular aspects of this, but we're moving together. Like, I really appreciate the expertise that AVA brings to the alternative permit streamlining effort. As a supporter of Solar App, this full suite of programs, and I was very bummed because of other fundings and operational developments. The foundation was not able to move forward with permit streamlining. AVA has been able to kind of come into that space and see what technical support needs to be provided, that we have that local expertise to do. So I know I've been pretty public about this. I've requested time on a future agenda when appropriate to discuss this in depth. But I really appreciate this section of the report, and I would encourage members of the public that have weighed in, if you're following this meeting here or online, to take a look at this aspect of the CEO report, because I think it provides a lot of useful detail. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much. We have one last comment by our CEO, and then we're going to move on.
I meant to emphasize this earlier, but I just forgot. I wanted to just make the point that acknowledging that San Joaquin County is not part of the Bay Area Air District, and so they won't have this particular rulemaking put in place for our newest members, unincorporated San Joaquin County, Stockton, Lathrop, Tracy. That doesn't mean that there's not interest in installing heat pump water heaters, of course, but we do think about that in terms of program design and what's relevant for our broader membership, and that's just something I want to make sure to emphasize at least.
Sorry.
Great. Last
Sorry.
comment.
Well, but I'll just mention things like our partnership with ACTC to do the e-bike programs, partnerships with Stopways to do those. Those are where I do believe there's advantages and efficiencies that can be gained with advancing both agencies' missions, et cetera. So I I just think the technical expertise that Ava can offer is something that cities don't have in-house. And, consultant fees are what they are, but we can be a partner agency to our municipal elements that are member agencies of the JPA as well. So I think there's opportunity there for the future. So thank you.
Great. Thank you all so much. Really appreciate the discussion and the information. So thank you to our CEO. Moving on to our CAC report. This evening, we have our Vice Chair Balkson, who is going to be presenting the report.
Thank you for having me. I just wanted to first just give you an overview of what we talked about, because we have brand new members of the CAC. So Mickey, our chair, spent time at our last meeting explaining the PCIA, our procedures, acronyms, and that kind of stuff. So kind of bear with us as we get used to all the new team. And the main thing that we focused on, which was an action item for the board, was the 2026-2027 annual budget. And Jason Bartlett did a fabulous, senior finance manager of AVA, did a fabulous presentation. He was answered a million questions. We had a very lively discussion about that. Very specifically, the issue we discussed was the local development funding under fiscal year 2020. The big zero in that one chart just flew out at us, and you've seen a lot of the comments, public comments you've seen on that. And the discussion focused around, in light of the fact that AVA's revenues recovered to about 130 million deficit, still a deficit, but less of a deficit than we expected. It was predicted, I guess, back in December 2025 that it would be 250 million. So because of that, the CAC felt that the 10 million that was presented as part of scenario B, because we were in such dire straits, taking the 10 million out, then we were all in agreement to. But now the recommendation that the CAC wants to make is, since the revenue deficits are not as dire as they were projected back in December 2025, the CAC recommends that the board approve the fiscal year 2026-27 annual budget contingent on the restoration of the 10 million to the local development fund. And that was like the first recommendation. I don't know if there's any questions about that before I go to the second one.
I would so this is your report, and you're welcome to say whatever you'd like.
Okay.
I think when we get to that budget item, we'll have a
Okay.
more detailed conversation, but thank you. Go ahead.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Proceed.
Secondly, there was a concern that the zero, and I know it could have been the way we discussed with Jason, that, the accounting buckets, you put things in and zero shows up, but that just seemed like a kind of the wrong message that Ava wanted to send, having that zero. So we talked about, should we say like a little asterisk and say, should we, notice that some of the work is still happening, and it's, even though there's no money coming forward, should we explain that? But then, in light of the December 25 agreement, we thought we might want to recommend a policy that would say that in the end, that the CAC proposed the second recommendation, which is that there's a policy for a minimum dollar amount for local development funding each year based on some percentage of AVA's revenues. And both motions were unanimous from the CAC. Thank
Okay,
you.
great. Thank you so much. Any questions at this point for the CAC? Yes, Director Roche.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate the discussion. I've heard a little bit about it since, but I just wanted to make sure, were you presented that that there is an $83 million balance in the local development budget, and with about 14 million or so that is sort of untapped? Okay, so you were still you were still sort of advocating that, because I think I get worried that when I hear the language that everyone keeps thinking that like there's $0 going to the local development, but given that there's a $93 million balance and about 14 million or so that's untapped so far, I just want to make sure you were presented that, so that was
that's a
part of
really
the
good point.
conversation.
I
Yeah.
probably wasn't very clear, but it was presented, the 83 million, then the 69 million. So we did see that. But the way the accounting showed, you could, Jason made a really good effort of explaining that these programs are already, the money's already been obligated to do these projects, but the money was less, but it's still, I think, as a joint powers agency, we don't want to send a message that we're not putting money forward to the community. So
Okay.
thank you for
No, I
that
understand the message.
clarification.
Yeah. And then the other question, I think, on your second point is, on the policy, isn't this part of our waterfall policy already that, once there's a reserve, and there's a certain amount of money, or if there is a surplus, then, some goes to the reserve, some goes to the rate stabilization, and then trickles down to Is that part of the
There's
waterfall?
not a formal waterfall policy. Year to year with the budget, we have
We talk about it. Okay,
stipulated that
great.
based
Okay.
on an annual basis. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay. Do we have any public comment on the CAC report?
There are no hands raised at this time, either in the room oh, there is one hand raised. Alice Sung, recognized for 2 minutes.
Yes, thank you. Alice Sung with Green Bank Associates. I'm a constituent and ratepayer of the Ava Community Energy. And I just want to say that I was in attendance at the CAC meeting and I fully support the two recommendations just made from the CAC, and just would like to emphasize the clarification of the remaining 83 million in other buckets of the local development funding that is mostly encumbered already. And so we're looking forward for the community in the next year's budget to see that we have another 10 million, which to reallocate to the community for local development funding. So I just want to express thanks to the CAC and emphasize our support. Thank you.
Chair Souza from the CAC, recognized for 2 minutes.
Yes, thank you. Great meeting so far. Really enjoyed it. I want to emphasize that there was a $10 million allocation that had been erased. This is what we're talking about, is that it is funds. There are funds there that were allocated, and because of the budget deficit, which has since recovered dramatically, that this allocation, and however you want to frame it, whether it's not framed in the actual budget, but that be restored. That is the point, and pretty much that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Daniel Franco, recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you. Since I just want to agree with the last two commenters. On 6.3, I asked two questions, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on them now. But those questions are, one, if not you, who? And if not now, when? We know the government is failing its citizens. We know the state's pretending to be broke. And yeah, it's not really fair, but it is more on you all than ever before, especially where the local development fund is considered. My main point today is even simpler than that. So just hear me out. Do not eat your seed corn. There's no shortage of farmers in your service area. Any of them are going to verify if you eat your seed corn, you're not going to have a farm for very long. And you need to understand that the local development fund is your equivalent of seed corn. Please don't kid yourself that it's not and saying, oh, I'm cutting its funding and it'll be fine next year. That's eating your seed corn. That's a trap you're putting yourself into. Please don't do that. In closing, I support overall the People's Clean Power Alliance and the local Clean Energy Alliance position on this budget issue. They're trying to help you help yourselves, so please heed them. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no further hands raised in the attendee area. There are no hands raised in the room.
Great, thank you so much. Bringing back any final comments from my colleagues on the CAC report before we turn to the actual budget agenda item. Seeing none. Okay, we're going to go ahead. Thank you for that. And moving on to agenda item 14, which is our fiscal year 26-27 annual budget. This is an action item. This is one of two action items tonight. And I just want to do a time check. It is 7:57 p.m.
I'll try to move quickly. That was such a great segue and tee up for this topic. You can go to the next slide. So we have reviewed this budget several times already. We reviewed an initial draft with XCOM in May. We reviewed it with the full board. We reviewed it with FAP at the end of May, and we've also re-reviewed it with XCOM at the beginning of June. Though those numbers have changed a bit, at least in the last two reviews with FAP and XCOM, there's been fairly immaterial changes. So this is similar to what was recently presented. So I will really focus on the changes from the May board meeting and not cover every slide. There are a number of slides that have been pushed into the appendix. So everything that was in the deck before is still there. But for purposes of kind of directing our efforts on the relevant changes, we've kind of moved some of those to the appendix. And I'm also going to still kind of just highlight the slides that have changed primarily. So I'm going to go through about a dozen slides or so here. Ultimately, we are seeking approval on this final proposed budget at today's board meeting. Okay. The next slide, slide 3, no material changes. So this is our current fiscal year that's ending. So I'll go by that one. Slide 5, you can go to Adrian, please. So this is the high level summary of what we're looking at here. In the past, when we have run either it being a surplus or a deficit, we've shown that in the total net revenues. You can see for both 26 and 27, 27, of course, is the focus here, is showing a 0. In the past, we were showing a deficit number, a negative number there, which is equivalent to the GASB 62 line item up above under revenue. So that is $24,160,000. And the reason for that is because we are now, with this being the final budget, we are incorporating utilization of GASB 62, which is a portion of our rate stabilization fund to offset the deficit. And so I just wanted to call that out. That's a difference in presentation leading up to this, because we always wanted to highlight what that number was in the past. And in this case, we now want to incorporate an actual action and change via utilization of the GASB 62. But that's where you can sort of size up what that deficit is equivalent to, which is $24 million for this budget setting process. That's if you recall, in May, we had a modest surplus of about $10 million. In the last couple of reviews we had with FAP and MRL, this is pretty closely aligned with those updates. The other thing I'll just say at a high level is you can see load is increasing year after year. That's largely driven off of expansion to San Joaquin County. We have incorporated the changes from PCIA Track 1, which took place going into 2026, and rates remain relatively stable, though revenues are declining across the fiscal year. We'll touch on a little bit of why that's happening as we go into it. So that's that. You can go to the next slide, Adrian. This slide is really just kind of laying out a bunch of uncertainties and risks that we've incorporated into the budget, but want to always continue to highlight that. As much as we have a forecast here, we know that these numbers will change, and they will change for a number of factors, starting from sort of regulatory related changes or filing related changes. Some of the inputs in the ERA filing, as an example, those caused changes just over the last month, and we will see that change again in October. The PCIA tracks 2 and 3, which are underway, those were certainly anticipated to cause some changes. In addition to that, we have load uncertainty, energy price uncertainty, projects coming online that will move around a little bit, and of course, the interest rate environment. So those are a variety of high-level uncertainties and risks that we incorporate in here that will inevitably drive changes to the actuals that we'll see. Next slide, Adrian. I just want to briefly touch on a major change happened from early May to sort of end of May timeframe related to the May 15th ERA filing. We talked about this in the prior board meeting. It created a lot of uncertainty in our last review there. At this stage, we have answered most of the material questions that we've put forth to PG&E or our consultants. We feel confident in the forecast here. With that said, there are some reconciliation issues and updates that we anticipate from PG&E. That would be an updated filing called an errata filing. That's basically to correct anything in there that we had seen. Those have not formally been released. So I just wanted to highlight that, though we do anticipate that those will get updated in a manner that we're expecting. So I think there's relatively low risk that we'll see material changes from that update that would drive changes to this budget. Next slide, please, Adrian. This is just, again, we covered this slide before, but really the update I'll share is that Track 3 had a number of workshops. We had 3 workshops in June with the CPUC to talk about the scope and the time frame of Track 3, which we anticipate could have a very meaningful impact on the PCI regulation, how that's calculated, how that's set in future years. Right now, what we're hearing is that's anticipated to be broken up into 2 tracks. So we will have a 3A and a 3B most likely. That's not formalized yet, but that's what we're hearing. The 3A track will likely go into effect at the end of the year, or at least that's the target to go into effect for rates going to 27. And then the bigger track 3B, would go into 27 and really not take into effect until probably 28 or so. So just want to highlight the risk and the uncertainties of those processes. And we saw with track 1 a very meaningful impact from what happened there. We anticipate similar types of impacts from a track 3. Next slide. Want to touch a bit on volatility here and just continue to emphasize the point, which is numbers will actualize in our budget that are different than what we forecasted here. And there are a number of reasons that I briefly touched on there in terms of the uncertainties. And this is one key aspect, which is there's inherent market volatility in energy prices that are a reflection of sort of the commodity that we provide and deal in, which is electricity. This, what I'll touch on here is reflection of kind of the most liquid pricing point in Northern California, which reflects our cost to serve our customers. This is a backwards looking table primarily, and you can just see the volatility we've had in the market over the last eight years or so. It's very significant, driven by weather anomalies, gas prices, et cetera. So that volatility exists, and this is a highlight of that. Adrian, next slide. This is the same data point, but on a different view. This is forward looking. So this reflects July 26 through June 27, which is the fiscal year budget period that we're seeking approval on. And what we're trying to highlight here is even on a forward looking basis, you can see month to month prices are highly varied. That's totally normal. But what we're really trying to call out here is each of these lines is the forward estimate of prices at different points in time. And each of those lines is for a given month over the last 6 months. So when you look at the difference between sort of these light blue lines and dark blue lines, you can see there's a $5 to $15 differential in every single month. And that is just based off of the volatility over the last 6-month period. So those have very significant impacts on forward prices and ultimately our budget. And so this is just simply a reflection of over the last 6 months, the type of volatility you see just on this one energy product. Next slide. Last point I'll just make on volatility is all of those last 2 graphs are really associated with the top right bar chart here. The bottom left one is resource adequacy. The bottom right is renewable energy. That top right is brown power. That's what I just spoke about. And the point here, again, is just to emphasize variability year to year. We see a lot of that volatility year to year. And then you also see a difference between the forecast and the final. So once again, highlighting volatility, variability, and ultimately actuals will differ from forecast. That is inherent in the commodity that we serve. And so it is normal to see $30, $40, $50 million swings based off the differences you see between the dark blue bars and the light blue bars and the differences that you see year to year. So with that, let's go to the next slide. This is a really important slide. So in the bottom left is calendar year rates, and the bottom right is fiscal year rates. So that's blending 2 different calendar years because our fiscal period is mid-year to mid-year. On the bottom left, what you see is calendar 26. That's where we sit right now. Those are current rates on average. That the blue bar is really what we have to serve our customers. The pink purple bar is PCIA. The total of that is total generation costs for our customers. And then you can see sort of a margin or operating expense. The operating expenses in green and the margin in orange. And you see we're running a modest deficit in 2026 and we're relatively flat in 2027. Overall rates are relatively flat year to year, which is held more steady than in historical years. And the right side is simply a blending of two years. So on the 26 bar chart on the right bar chart, which is labeled fiscal year, that is a blending of calendar year 25 and 26. If you look at the left one, and then the bar chart all the way to the right, which is 2027 base under fiscal year, that is a blending of 26 and 27, which is pretty flat. So it ends up being a pretty sort of on top of those. Okay, let's go to the next slide, Adrian. Again, this incorporates the updates. The big highlight I'll make here is that the GASB 62 of $24 million, that is broken up into the last two bullets on this slide. So $18.9 million is being taken from the rate stabilization fund to offset that portion of the deficit. And then there's $5.2 million that is related to a resolution passed a number of years back associated with incremental investments that we wanted to put towards clean energy generation and storage. And this was a result of surplus from a prior year where the board took action. So we want to sign an incremental PPA and we want to set aside some additional funds to support that. So that's what this $10.5 million is related to. And because that was earmarked and approved specifically in this resolution that's referenced to be released in 2027, because that is a split period from a fiscal year perspective, we have divided that in half, partially for this next fiscal year, half for the year after that. So that's what is accounted for there. Okay, let's keep on moving. Adrian, we can go to slide, apologies, let me just make sure I pull up the right one. Slide 15, please. So this is, again, we always include additional low and high end scenarios. Again, this is not the extreme bookends and as if there's no possibility to go outside of this, but I think these are practical ends of the spectrum that we're looking at. And underlying that are various market price benchmarks that feed into these scenarios. So just trying to give a sense of, in the low end, prices soften significantly from where they are. That would drive a more increased deficit. And on the high end, if prices actually increase, you'll see that our sort of financial headroom to operate increases, and that's where you see a modest surplus there. The reason that base case is showing as a deficit of $18 million is because we didn't include the rate stabilization fund here because we just wanted things to be apples to apples. So that's that. Let me go to slide 16, please. The next slide. So this is now touching on costs. So costs of energy changed modestly. Again, that is, the best reflection of that is that volatility slide that it showed that shows sort of the forward-looking curves and how that's changed. So these have changed a little bit there just over the course of last month as we've updated our price forecasts. The other OpEx related changes, overhead related expense changes are these are changes relative to the last board review, is that we included an additional $300,000 under marketing and communications that was inadvertently left off in the last review, though that was covering work that we had fully sort of highlighted and anticipated doing. And then we increased our general and administrative by $500,000 for general contingency funds, recognizing that we had cut a little too deep on that in prior iterations where we were running a more significant deficit. So we added that back in. Those are the two overhead changes alone. I'm going to jump now over to slide 20. Obviously, this has been a source of discussion and commentary over the last month. The change that we've made here is adding the earmarked column. So previously we just showed balance, and now we did add earmarked to show what is specifically planned for in each of these categories already. And you can see a difference, of course, being those are sort of unprogrammed dollars, so to speak, for future discussions. This is a pretty significant number. There's a lot of active work underway across these programs. It will take a number of years to deploy these dollars, but we're expending a lot of effort, staff time to try to be thoughtful about our program planning. Some of these are very actively underway. You'll recognize names like Bike Electric, Smart Home Charging, Smart Home Battery. These are launched programs, and some of them, of course, are being continued to be worked on. One thing I'll just note is that we are undergoing our sort of customer programs roadmap. We've talked about that. That's a longer term planning process that we want to do over the course of the next sort of 6 to 12 months. So we really think about what does the next 5 years look like for various local development programs. So we're really thoughtful, intentional. And with that, we have intentions to think about what are the funds that are needed and how would we fund that over, sort of the forward-looking horizon. So I know there's been discussion about, let's establish a policy to commit. And I think this is really trying to say, let's plan accordingly, but let's allow us to do that planning first, given that we have a very healthy balance that we're currently working on. Next slide, please, Adrian. And this is just for the next year. So you can see that the fiscal year 27 spend is about $12 million. The committed spend is about $29 million. The difference there, of course, is 27 is those are dollars that we anticipate will go out the door. To highlight a couple examples there, right? So under smart home battery incentives, we have $1.2 million that will actually be spent. That's a program we just launched in March. We're getting enrollments already. We're getting some residential systems online already. And there's a 5-year ongoing incentive payment for this program. So that's why committed is more like $10 million, because these are incentive dollars that will stretch out over a multi-year period. We, of course, have to hold that funding to be available to pay those out. That's why there's a difference there. So a lot of great work. Really excited by what our staff is doing across these programs. Many of these are launched and in market, though there's still continual work that needs to happen. And we're obviously trying to actively engage with our customers to educate them on these programs and get those dollars out the door. You can go to the next slide, please, Adrian. So this slide is just showing the balance of reserves and rate stabilization fund. No change on reserves. You can see our balance is about $330 million there, which is about close to 40% of our forecasted operating expenses. And then the table just below that shows our rate stabilization fund balance, about $163 million. And then I briefly mentioned the $10.5 million related to the clean energy investments. So the change on this page is just that very bottom table there. So utilizing the $24 million within our GASB 62 that we highlighted, this is what this would be our final balance at the end of the year, which is roughly $19 million from rate stabilization fund and half of that clean energy investments being released. So I wanted to highlight that. Last slide, please, Adrian. Next slide. So this is a new slide from the May board meeting, though we showed this at FAP and XCOM. So this is just showing a 5-year forecast. This is something I know that board members have asked about at various times to get some direction on what does the future look like for us for budgetary planning purposes, which makes sense. So we've created this view. Of course, an important caveat is we know actuals will differ from this. So of course, we want to forecast it, and this does give us some visibility into that, but it assumes, sort of stasis and stability related to energy market prices in terms of any regulatory changes and any PG&E related revenue requirements. I know to expect those things will change, but obviously we don't exactly know how those will change. And so those don't assume any changes here. So I just want to call that out. And you can see at least we are running a surplus, the modest surplus that is adding up over the 5-year period. And any surplus that we see from that, of course, we would want to have that conversation with our board, as we always do year to year when we are forecasting surplus, as do we apply that to lowering rates and increasing our value proposition, which is currently at 0.5% discount for a Bright Choice product? Do we do incremental clean energy procurement? Do we allocate to local development funding? Of course, there are working capital needs, rate stabilization fund reserves, operational enhancements. So a lot of different areas that we would want to have that discussion with our board to intentionally plan for how to deploy these dollars and measure and balance those priorities that we all have. And so you can go to the next slide, and this is really just the conclusion. To formally state, we're seeking approval on this budget. It incorporates utilization of the rate stabilization fund and release from our GASB 62 as noted. We do anticipate changes here potentially in the mid-year, as we oftentimes see. We'll see an updated October air filing, so I would anticipate bringing forward any material changes there and at least an update, as we always do in the mid-year. And then the last slide is an expanded view of the budget itself, but it's a bit of an eye chart. So there it is in all of its glory.
Okay.
That is it.
Great. Thank you for that. So, so there have been many public meetings on the topic of this year's budget, and I know we've all had chances to ask and have questions answered. So, so I'm going to do a Q&A right now with our directors, hoping we can be as efficient as possible. Obviously, I don't want to limit your ability to ask questions, but we do want to have time for public comment and time to get to our next agenda item. So I'm looking at my colleagues to see if anyone has a question at this time. Director Tregu.
Thank you. Yeah, many of my questions have been answered, so I think I just have two. On the local development fund balance charts, can you just speak kind of at a high level around earmarked, committed, how much shifting can there be between those categories? At what level and when would such shifting be authorized? And then I had a specific question on the Ava Bike Electric incentives. Looks like the spend down is equivalent to the committed. So just wondering, is there, does that suggest that the program will be sunsetting, or am I misreading the chart?
Great question. So on the earmarked, those are all sort of planned. When I say planned, some are very, very formally committed in plan. You know, we may be imminently issuing an incentive that is a 5-year commit to a customer. So that's a very firm commitment, I would say. In other areas, they may be more high level of, we have programmed that towards building electrification, but we don't actually have a program that's fully designed yet. And we would anticipate bringing that forward to the board when we're actually ready to bring something forward, both on the design as well as perhaps selecting a contractor. So there's a spectrum of what earmarked really relates to. But for the most part, I would just say that we are planning for that. And there are significant dollars that are really pretty well committed. And then, of course, the difference between balanced and earmarked, those are unplanned dollars. So much more open-ended, and we would bring that forward to the board with any anticipated changes or plans for that for discussion. So TBD on that front. I would say we would probably reserve more of that for what is coming out of our customer programs roadmap, because we're not, there's a lot of dollars to spend that are earmarked currently. So that's your first question. The second question on Bike Electric is, I think your interpretation is correct. That program is intended to sunset here in the near future, and we'll get out the dollars and wrap up that program. With that said, we are internally evaluating amongst staff consideration to continue that program. It has been a very highly successful program. Customers have responded very well. It is one of our programs that really is available and eligible for all customers, whether you're a renter, an owner, low income, market, rate. So we see a lot of reasons to consider some more funding there, but obviously there's a lot of different priorities. So we're still evaluating that internally. We are considering bringing something to the board for extension there.
I see JP has his hand raised.
Howard, just wanted to note that doesn't include the 4 million from ACTC that we're getting for Bike Electric. So these are our funds. So it's not imminent that we're out of money. 4 million is kind of what we call on next after we use the dollar.
Thank you. Yeah. This does not reflect sort of leveraged dollars that we're getting from outside sources, to be clear. So there certainly are additional funding that we're bringing to these programs as well.
Great. Thank you, ACTC. And my other question is, and I didn't get a chance to ask you this before. I understand that there is a marginal reduction in the proposed budget for marketing and communication. I also understand that there is a proposed, maybe somewhat marginal personnel adjustment. Could you speak to kind of just how you're envisioning marketing and communication as a just part of the bigger picture in terms of Ava's vision and goals for the year?
Yeah, I'll just call out for marketing. You highlighted that a marginal reduction. That reduction is mostly driven on decrease in mailing requirements, because when we expanded to Stockton, Lathrop, and then unincorporated San Joaquin County, there's significant mailing costs that are a regulatory requirement. So we're no longer doing that, of course, with the exception of solar customers, which is a fairly small amount. So that's the biggest driver of that reduction in costs. We do have sort of some strategic work on the horizon. One of the specific call-outs there in that third bullet is investment to brand awareness strategy. So our brand awareness is relatively low considering the amount of customers and population that we serve. And so, we want to be thoughtful and take a step back and invest in thinking about how do we continue to increase brand awareness, given that we are a portion of a bill. And candidly, many of our customers would say they're not fully aware that our customers. They think they're PG&E customers, and they are PG&E customers, but we want to think about outlets to communicate with them more effectively, not just with our programs, with our wholesale energy products, and how do we do that more effectively and just build on that awareness over time. So that's one of the more strategic elements, I think, related to marketing that we have planned.
Thank you so much.
Chair.
Yes, Director Balch.
Thank you very much. And I will try to be brief. I appreciate the continued updates and conversation. I got, I think, 3 questions. The first is, in the 5-year forecast, I know there's got to be a lot of assumptions in that. So appreciate us looking a little bit further forward. Does that assume that we will continue to meet the carbon-free targets that AVA has adopted at this point?
It does, yes. That's in our,
I didn't see it in the
default-
assumptions here. I just wanted to confirm.
Yes,
So-
that's in our sort of default procurement schedule. So that assumes that, yes. Correct.
Okay, perfect. The second is, we are part of trade association, I know, as AVA with other CCAs. And I presume based on all the volatility, the regulatory compliance issues, many of the CCAs are facing similar headwinds and whatnot. Does the trade association provide us, is staff working to maybe understand how the CCAs can work together to learn from this and how they're each handling similar underlying volatility issues? Is that happening? And are we, it seems like this is getting to be more complex than it has in past years. So I just wanted to ask how other CCAs are trying to address that. And that's probably a lengthier answer than what we have now. I just want to make sure we're doing that conversation.
The short answer is yes, very much so. It's a very collegial, very collaborative space where we're always sharing, best practices, ideas, risk management, procedures from an operational perspective, from a procurement perspective, from a programs perspective, all of the above. We do that on a independent one-on-one basis. And we do that through CalCCA, which is our trade association. So they help to organize some of those working groups. And we have a finance working group. We have a power procurement working group, we have a marketing working group, we have a risk management working group. And all of the staff from various CCAs are part of that. And oftentimes it is a CCA staff member that may lead that particular working group, but we do a lot of sharing of those ideas and best practices. And from a regulatory perspective, we're absolutely very, very much so collaborating. And that's where CalCCA in particular, on topics like PCI and the complexity there, they're really leading that charge on behalf of us, getting our thoughts and ideas on sort of operational risks, and then being sort of that tip of the spear with the CPUC and other regulatory bodies.
I'll follow up on that is like MCE is obviously a PG&E affiliated entity similar to us. And so I presume the PG&E adjustments that came out affected them just as greatly as us. So I guess I'm just trying to confirm that if they've got a different way of doing it, we're evaluating if that might be a better way and vice versa. Right?
Yes, we are doing that comparison. And I will say many are following our lead on sort of our risk management practices. And some CCAs also do different things, such as they are okay being more expensive than PG&E as a standard for their base product. So there are different tools that one can deploy. We have, of course, are very consistent on Bright Choice always being at some level of a discount, albeit right now it's at a fairly modest discount. But that's been a really important priority for us. Not every CCA takes that approach. And so there are mixed tools there, but there's absolutely a sharing of those sort of ideas and practices. And I think there's consistency with amongst different CCAs, of course. Yeah.
Okay. And then my last question, and then I'll have comments when we get back around, which is, if you were to, we've talked about it, right? The volatility in compliance, the volatility in just the energy prices, the volatility in the PCIA, there's so many different elements, right? Volatility in customer defaults, for example, and collections and all of that. What are the, if you were to advise the board, what are the 2 or so highest risk factors that drive a lot of the volatility in our budget? Like, what are the top, if I may, just what are the top 2 from your perspective that would swing our budget significantly?
Yeah. So for our costs, our energy costs, it's weather conditions and natural gas pricing. Those are the 2 biggest factors that drive energy prices on a short-term basis and drive the volatility in those graphs. And for load, I would say, and there's one other sort of pseudo cost factors, regulatory risk, right? Yep. So I can forecast prices based off of weather. We're going to get that wrong, but we know what drives that, and we can kind of sense that as we get closer and closer. Regulatory reform or change is a harder thing to predict. There's some politics there and uncertainty as much as you try to read those tea leaves and as much as you try to advocate for certain positions. So that's an aspect I would say that can have the potential for some major change. And we have that on the horizon with the particular PCIA tracks that we're talking about. Right. So that's another very significant one. And the last one from a revenue perspective is our load. Our load doesn't change so much. They're within certain bounds, but we do see 5 or 10% fluctuations based off of weather again, but also with new load such as unincorporated San Joaquin County.
that's-
That's where it's a little lumpier, obviously, year to year.
And not only that, if I may, just to confirm, but when we add load, we're adding also to our revenue, our reserve targets, because our reserve target policy is to have sufficient based upon our load. And as we obviously grow as a territory JPA, it's working against us at this, but with other benefits. Okay, thank you very much, Chair.
Okay, I believe the vice chair has some questions.
Two questions very quickly. Pages 6 and 7, you talk about the uncertainty. And in particular, I think at one of our meetings, probably XCOM, you said that part of the ERA filing, there's still a lot of unknowns, so there's still a lot of uncertainty. Is that sitting here today as we vote, that uncertainty still remains?
No, I think we've addressed most of that uncertainty. They briefly mentioned that we've gotten responses on most of our outstanding, at least all of the material issues. And so I have a good degree of confidence in
Thank
this
you.
forecast on the
Thank
basis
you.
of the ERA. Yeah.
The other question is on page 21, the local development anticipated spend. You've got $12 million there plus other dollars that may be leveraged. From what I know, these programs, this is all money that's being spent in territory.
Yes, that is correct.
So I mean, it's real local.
That is
development.
correct. This is local development, so it's all, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, yes, Director Marquez.
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to clarify, what is our current reserve policy, noting that on slide 22, we are at 41% of our operational expenses?
So our reserve policy has a target of 50% with a band of 25 to 75%. So 50% is the target. And then our rate stabilization fund target is 20%.
20%. And then we didn't contribute anything to the reserves last year, and there's nothing projected for this year.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Any questions from my colleagues online? No? Okay, we're going to turn to public comment. I would like anyone who wants to make a public comment to line up at the podium. If you're in the room, if you're attending remotely, please raise your hand, and we're going to get a count of how many people are going to participate in public comment. So we're going to cut this off. So please raise your hand now if you're planning to make a public comment on this agenda item.
4 hands raised in the attendee area. 5, 2 hands, 2 in the room.
Okay, given our board policy of trying to wrap up and start our last agenda item no later than 9 o'clock, I'm going to request that public commenters limit their comments to 1 minute. I'm also going to note that there has been ample opportunity to weigh in on the budget at at least 4, if not 5 public meetings prior to this evening. So I'm sorry about the limitation, but we really do need to get through all of our agenda this evening if we are able. So let's go ahead and start. 1 minute. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. Hello, I'm Avi from the Local Clean Energy Alliance, and I'd like to uplift the recommendations by CAC to add 10 million to the local development fund for the 2027 budget as a line item and establish a surplus allocation policy that states a minimum dollar amount to the LDF as well as some percentage of revenues if net positive. So because back in December, the board and CAC agreed to reduce the amount of local development funding to help pay off the $250 million deficit, but with the 25-26 budget expected to actualize with a surplus in excess of $80 million, I think there may be some leeway to put some of that surplus into the local development fund and commit to Ava's mission in their joint powers agreement. Thank you.
Thank you. Jessica DeVar, recognized for 1 minute.
Jessica Tovar, Local Clean Energy Alliance. I do have a question for the board and the staff. Is one thing that I'm concerned about is that this agency no longer has a grants manager. And how do you plan to roll out money to the community? I want to uplift this because one thing that I've noted is there's a lot of communities around doing Resilience Hub work who will not benefit from a solar and storage incentive, who actually really need capacity grants and investment from this agency. And then the other point I want to make is that there are some state grants that this agency could be partnering with our organizations to go after funds that are outside of this agency to continue the work around resilience hubs. There's a lot more I want to say, but yeah, definitely we want to see that 10 million put back, and we want to see more investment in local development every year, even if it has to be a low number. Clean power to the people.
Brett Andrews, recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you. My name is Brett Andrews. I'm a Alameda County ratepayer, practicing neurologist, and a board member of SF Bay Physicians for Social Responsibility. And we applaud your history of funding the local development fund and request that you restore the previous 10 million annually, but also build in a yearly annual increase. Through this funding, you are saving health and preventing premature deaths by reducing air pollution as well as fighting climate change. As a neurologist, I see patients from the frontline communities in East and West Oakland and who suffer from disproportionate health burdens compounded by the adjacent port and airports and related traffic. The Bay Area has some of the highest rates of asthma. Please fund electrification, energy efficiency, and even language access to save health and save lives. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Margie Lewis, you're recognized for 1 minute. Margie Lewis, you're recognized for 1 minute.
Can you?
Yes, we can hear you.
I think she's muted.
No. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I want to uplift that you pay back the 10 million that you took for the projected deficits and continue to add to the fund. This money will directly support historically disinvested communities so we can all benefit from a clean energy future. We cannot afford to widen the wealth gap that already exists. The rainy day is here now, and we need to pay for it. It must be our priority. Clean power to the people.
Thank you. Daniel Franco, recognized for 1 minute.
Hello again. Do not eat your seed corn. You sound very convinced in this slide presentation that you're doing the safe thing, but the actual responsible thing to do is to question your assumptions right now. In the coming months and years, when the corrupt Trump regime comes for you and all the other CCAs, you're going to need every ally you can get just to survive. The local development fund is how you build those allies. So what you actually want to be doing is increasing the funding, cutting elsewhere if you have to, but it's cheap insurance in the long run. Build your allies now. Do the smart thing, restore the funding, and yeah, it sounds like you need to restore your grants manager too. Thank you.
Thank you. Alice Sung, recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you so much, Alice Sung again. I'm here to uplift all of the past speakers who've been here to support local development funding and local clean energy. I'd like to say that we support that in specific, the 2 recommendations from the CAC that have been put forth again this evening to restore the $10 million at least to the local development fund so that we in the community have a future to work together with you to design programs that meet our needs. Secondly, to support the recommendation from the CAC to create a framework and moreover to involve us, engage us, the community, in developing that framework for future funding to demonstrate the leadership and the commitment that Ava Community Energy has an opportunity to fund. And lastly, also, please do consider supporting a grants manager restoration.
Thank you. There are no further hands raised at this time.
Great. Okay. Thank you to all who participated in the public comment. I also want to let folks know that the board has reviewed all written communication that was submitted prior to the meeting this evening. So really appreciate your engagement on this important topic. Just a point of order. I just want to say all of us are proud of the work that has been done and is being done with respect to local development. So we're all on the same page in terms of thinking local development is a good thing and being proud of our agency for the prior board's allocation of dollars and resources to local development. So I just kind of want to say that up front. And then point of order, I just wanted to maybe talk a little bit for a few minutes about whether or not we should be talking about this question of restoring the $10 million to local development when we're discussing our potential surplus from the 25-26 year, because the 10 million was potentially taken away from the 25-26 allocation. That's the budget we're talking about. So in this fall, we'll be talking about the surplus that is a result of that budget, and it was more conservative than we realized. And so that might be the time to revisit whether or not we want to refund those monies to local development or do something else with those monies. So it's just a point of order that it may line up sort of year over year budget wise to make more sense to have that conversation in the fall. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, well, thank you, Chair. So I'll just mention, I would love to be fully funding the local development fund, as well as a lot of other priorities that AVA has, no doubt. I think as a directional activity, that's a good one to maintain and keep in mind. I think that the suggestion you've just made, Chair, about doing it when we get the audited results and look at where we're at in the waterfall and all of that might be actually a more prudent and fiscally prudent action by the board. So I support that. I did want to mention a few things, and it's, as many know, Pleasanton has had a wobble with its financial city finances, and we've been working through it and having to reduce staff and address programs that have been long valued by the community members, and retracting those is a very difficult thing to do. I personally see, and I'll just mention it from my own perspective, for board perspective, but we're using $24 million of our reserve to fund a projected deficit and make it zero, basically, right? So we're using some of our reserve. If we were to allocate more money to the local development, we would be increasing the amount that we would be removing from a different reserve. And it's an interesting concept, because we all probably know we put dollars to CIP programs in our city, but if you're not able to deploy the CIP dollars, you're really just moving it around between one account to a different account. Because the way I see it, the earmarked or committed is already committed. I don't know if we could deploy, even if we had an additional $10 million, could we actually deploy it in the fiscal budget year? And so I just caution that by keeping it still within the rate stabilization fund and the reserve funds and all that, we still keep it available to go that path, I guess is how I'm looking at it, but we're not committing it to that path. So I just want to maybe start that. But I also will highlight what I've seen through this budget development is the variability in this, the swings in this, and the regulatory elements of these budgets are getting more complex than when I first joined AVA. And Member Marquez has got a longer history on the organization than I do. But this is just starting to, it's getting more complex. Yeah. It really is. And so I am seeing a maturing of the CCAs overall, and that is lending me to be a bit more conservative at this time. And, I can have a different opinion, but I really appreciate the work staff's done to try to be transparent about what we're facing and what assumptions they're making and how they're trying to guide the organization for long-term success. And the 5-year forecast showing that there's a potential to do exactly what's being asked, to look at funding some additional things. I think that's exactly it. As to the grant manager or not, I'm going to leave that to staff. I think they can manage how they manage their workload. It might not be that head count. It may be that they can handle it through the staff they have. And frankly, that's why we hire an executive director to handle those issues and deliver what the organization's JPA wants us to deliver. So that's where I stand. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Member Rush.
Thank you. Yeah, I want to thank staff for getting here. I mean, there was this ever-changing forecasting that made it really difficult to land on a final recommendation. And so I just really appreciate all the work that went into it, trying to be as careful as we needed to be, but also being honest about what our deficit might look like. so, we have looked at this budget now for several meetings. Everyone has gotten to weigh in. So I am supportive of the budget as it's recommended today, but I am interested in looking forward at how we come up with a more formal policy so we don't have to have this discussion every time. So what happens when we have a surplus does the local development fund have a specific allotment from the waterfall, whatever our policy looks like? Remembering that, I think as was said by Director Marquez or asked about that we do have, our reserve is not getting funding in this cycle. Our rate stabilization fund is not getting funding. In fact, it's we're removing some from that. And so, we have these other huge priorities that, given the volatility of this industry, that reserve could really come into question. I mean, that 50% target, it's there for a reason, right? That's the recommendation because of something, catastrophic happens. And so I do see that I'm supporting the recommendation today, but I am totally interested in looking forward and making sure the local development has some sort of specific policy when we start looking at the surplus in the fall. So I like that recommendation, Chair. Thank you. That has a specific line item, I guess, in the waterfall. Maybe that's how we talk about it. And as the reserve and as the rate stabilization funds have targets, 50% and 20%, maybe the local development fund has a target. I don't know that we have a target for that, like that keeps at some certain balance, or there's a target to keep at that balance. And so I'd be interested in that conversation as well. But otherwise, I want to thank you for all the work that went into this, and I'm going to support the staff recommendation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Vice Chair.
I'm very cognizant of time and that we have our prepay. So I'm actually going to make a motion that we adopt the staff recommendation and that what we discuss in the fall with respect to surplus considers the ask of the public members. So that's my motion.
I'll second.
Oh, God.
Oh, no okay. It's like Jeopardy, right? Okay, so moved by the Vice Chair, seconded by,
Balch said it first, I think, or we said it simultaneously, but I'll give it to Balch, but can I just speak briefly?
Absolutely.
Thank you for everyone listening to the community. I just want to say publicly, I've been doing a lot of reflecting, and I just have to, own my own voting record on this body, but I do feel strongly that it's really important that we go back to the JPA and the founding core mission of this agency. I do feel like we've lost a little bit of sight of that. So it's really important to me that we prioritize the local development, local investment. We are dealing with significant crises when it comes to just global warming, just everything that we're faced with, but we need to invest back in our community. So I really appreciate the motion that was made, so that way we can prioritize this past November. I think I could just speak for myself. I hear the community loud and clear, and I do think it's time that we course correct, and we have to capture that investment. It's going to be critical that we do that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Director Traeger.
Yeah, thank you. A lot of what I was going to say has already been said, so I'm going to be brief. I would be remiss if I didn't thank both our staff as well as the executive committee for looking at this budget, as well as our community partners and members of the public who shared their perspectives today and throughout this process. This is an exceptionally difficult budget year. I think many of us in our own local jurisdictions are dealing with the pain of that as well. And the choices were a little easier when we were in a $10 million surplus space, which we are not now. So pretty much overnight, over the course of a month, we are now in a $20 million deficit space. So we're talking about deficit spending. That's just to be clear. And at the same time, echoing my colleague and former board chair Marquez's comments, I think one of the things that has made AVA so special is that we are more than an energy provider. We have sought to be a public agency that advances equity, supports our communities, and helps ensure that the benefits of the clean energy transition are available to everyone, especially those who have been historically left behind. I am going to be supporting the budget. I'm a supporter of being fiscally disciplined in these trying times. However, I do not believe that our goal should simply be to balance a budget. but rather to preserve and maximize the public value that AVA provides. And therefore, I am supportive of I was going to propose a mid-year review, and effectively that's what this motion does. And in addition to looking at a policy and talking about our priorities, including the local development business plan, I also just want to put on the table, affordability is such a big issue right now, or rather the lack thereof. And I want to maybe come back to the conversation about is our value proposition sufficient, or should it be something else, or what goal should we aspire? And there are going to be trade-offs, and we can have that conversation in the fall. And I'm fully prepared to do that. And I invite members of the public to continue engaging with us and this agency in the interim. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Director Barrientos.
Is it on?
Yes.
Thank you, staff, and sitting as city council in here too, we hire professionals. And, I'm not a professional. I can go through the budget and say, okay, great, looks black. That's what I want. And I'm worried about what's going to happen for the next few months with, I don't say Trump, okay? Right now, he's bought another wind power company because shut the wind power down. So what's he got planned for California? Because things are going to get tougher before November and maybe before January. So I appreciate the staff in your budget, and I know we should help when we can. And I think when we come back in November, that we can review the budget and check it out, see how we're doing. And I'm going to support the budget too.
Great, thank you. Okay, looking around, I want to make sure everyone has had a chance to comment. Who wants to comment? I'm looking at the directors, and I would like everyone to hang in for the next agenda item as well, since we do need a quorum for that one too. We do have a motion on the floor from our vice chair, seconded by Director Balch, and I think we can go ahead and vote unless I hear anybody else. Okay, going once, going twice. We're going to go ahead and vote.
Great, thank you very much. San Leandro.
Aye.
Pleasanton.
Aye.
Alameda.
Aye.
Albany.
Yes.
Berkeley.
Aye.
Dublin, Emeryville.
Aye.
Fremont. We'll come back to Fremont. Hayward.
Aye.
Lathrop, Livermore.
Aye.
Newark, Oakland.
Aye.
Pleasant. Oh, sorry, Pleasanton. Stockton. Tracy.
Aye.
Union City.
Aye.
Piedmont.
Aye.
Motion is approved.
Okay, thank you all so much for the thoughtful, as I mentioned before, public comments and the thoughtful discussion, questions, comments here at the Board of Directors. Really appreciate that and look forward to continuing the conversation. So we're now closing out that agenda item and we're moving to our final agenda item. We're getting in just under the wire. The meeting can last past 9 o'clock. I know Rusty is going to be as efficient as possible. This is a complicated topic. So please hang in there with us. Item number 15.
Greetings, everyone. I will actually try to sprint us to 9 o'clock and get us out of here on time. If that's even on time, I'm not sure, but after, I think I'll wait for Henry to get it up. I will mention real quickly, after closing 2 prepay bond transactions last year, we now have 5 that we have closed since 2021. All of which have been operationalized, and AVA is receiving discounted power through those 5 deals. These transactions are complex. I did cover in some detail some of the more dense information at FAP and XCOM. I did include those slides, and they're in the appendix, so I will go through a shortened presentation here. You can go to the first slide there. I will give some color on our results shortly, but quickly want to mention what the objective of prepay is. Tax regulation allows for tax-exempt bonds to be issued to prepay for energy that serves load. For AVA, our objective is simple. We're trying to lower our cost of energy on existing and future energy contracts through a discount that we receive, which can help us provide a customer value proposition and fund programs into the future, which is a lot of what we've been talking about with the budget. You can go on to the next slide. So given our growing load and PPAs that are coming online, we want to lock in additional discounted power. So we're seeking approval for 2 additional prepays. Similar to last year, we would like authorization for up to 1.25 billion each. However, they'll likely be closer to $1 billion. That seems to be the comfortable amount that gets efficiently priced in the markets for these prepays. After a solicitation in March, we selected Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs to underwrite 1 bond sale each, and they would deliver us the discounted power through those 2 prepays. We'll also seek green bond designations once again, and would hope to be in a position to begin marketing the bonds to investors after the approvals from this board and then CCCFA's board next week. If market conditions allow, we would price and close these by the end of July. Next slide. This table shows Ava's prepaid transactions and helps really summarize the benefits they provide. The important stats here, it is somewhat of an eye chart in the table. These benefits are the discount per megawatt hour and initial period savings. You can see we've assigned 10 PPAs and contracted for 21 million megawatt hours through the initial pricing dates for an average discount of about $9.55 a megawatt hour. And that would yield savings of over $200 million on our power costs. We do note that at XCOM meeting, there was a request to maybe look at it from an NPV perspective. Didn't put it in the table, but that roughly equates to about 140 million of NPV savings at our cost of capital of about 5.5. Next slide. Okay, this chart visually shows the savings we've enjoyed to date in more of a chart format, and then also shows the forecast of what we will receive through the initial pricing periods for these bonds. We currently receive savings of over 20 million per year, and then with these 2 additional prepays we are hoping to transact, this would be more than 30 million annually. We do have a list of various risks in the appendix that we detailed at both FAP and XCOM, but the one we'd like to highlight here and just talk about is refinancing risk for AVA, which essentially for us is more of a budgetary planning risk and how it may affect AVA in the future. So as you see this table in post 2030, some of these savings could decrease if markets could change and the discount maybe would come in less when we go to the market to reprice these bonds we've already issued. Or possibly they don't materialize if bonds didn't get reissued for some structural issues like tax code changes, or potentially the recipients don't offer discounted power through prepays anymore because the interest rate market has really collapsed again, like we had for about a decade of very, very low rates. Prepays were not occurring very often. We do feel very good about this structure, though, and we feel we should continue seeking these discounted power supplies while we can, with the knowledge that there is some risk to the continued availability of the savings. And so it's some budgetary pressure could materialize in the future if we're relying too much on the savings. But I think that's what we do our planning around, and we have reserves, rate stabilization, and those types of things to get us through. Because I think if the market did go away, we certainly would have, a year or so, 2 years of time to lead up to kind of deal with, okay, how are we going to deal with now not receiving $30 to $50 million a year in savings? So next slide. This details our volume capacity and the amount of prepays we could do. Tax Council has advised us that we don't want to prepay for any more than 80% of our load. In case some load does disappear for certain structural issues on something with either JPA or technology advances. However, it would occur. We don't want to go all the way up to 100% because in order to be in tax compliance, these deals need to have load to serve any prepaid power. So this breaks down what we've done in orange, the 5 that we have closed so far. They're about 34%. And then the purple section would be additive to almost 50% with 2 more deals. And then if we prepay up to 80%, we could be looking at maybe 3 to 4 more deals after these 2 transactions. And last slide. To kind of summarize this and wrap it up in a request, the prepays are providing over 20 million in savings annually right now, could approach 40 to 50 million if we issue as many as we can to the recommended upper limit. There is a bit of a risk to planning that exists with these prepays. So we will obviously factor those into our strategy and how we issue the bonds and look for, places we can optimize savings within the legal guidance given. We feel like these really bring a lot of benefit to our customers. And so we'd like to request authorization to enter into all the financing agreements necessary to price and close 2 prepay transactions subject to those parameters, no more than 2 transactions. Aggregate principal of each series will not exceed 1.25 billion. Monthly discount, monthly or minimum discount that we will accept from the underwriters will be at least 8% of the fixed cash flows. We are around 10%, typically 10 to 12% right now in the market is what we will be hoping for. The bonds will be non-recourse to us and not obligations and on our balance sheet. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions. Got 3 minutes.
Okay. And we may go over 9 p.m. just by a little bit. So, okay. But since we're already on this agenda item, we're okay. We have a little grace period here. So I, at this time, would like this. These are very, very complicated transactions. So I am hopeful that my colleagues have had a chance to sit with the flow charts and kind of understand, at least a little bit high level, what the value proposition is for our customers, given these types of transactions. And if there are any questions right now, now is the time to ask them. Yes, Director Roche.
Yeah, I mean, even if I sit with all the charts, I'm not sure I'm totally understanding. But so thank you for trying to give it to us as simple as possible. But I just wanted to ask, given that you talked about there is some risk, are other agencies doing this? This is now a common way for other agencies to be acquired.
Absolutely. I think CCCFA has issued over 25 prepays. So we've got 5 that we've done, but other CCAs in California have done 20 or so.
Okay. All right. Great. Thanks. Just want to make sure we're in good company. All right. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Vice Chair.
So the main risk that I heard to Ava is really just we don't realize the savings that we anticipated. I'm particularly curious about any downside risk, because I'd like to just get it out on the table to the extent that there is any. I can think of at least one, but I'd rather that, kind of staff identify any kind of negative outcome where we would be hurt as an agency.
A negative outcome. So these are non-recourse to us. So I'm trying to, get through a couple of comments here that the way that Ava is protected is just an off-taker. Similar to us when we're in a PPA agreement that we have now, is, the power source is going to be discounted that we're getting, but does something happen to a participant in the structure? So the commodity supplier in these deals, like a Morgan Stanley or Goldman Sachs, we have a reoccurrence of something like 2007. So the whole deal structure would come down. Ava just does not receive its power. Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, not foretelling anything for our fellow bankers on our financing team, but having a Lehman Brothers moment or something like that, the deal would collapse. But again, Ava does not have any recourse to that collapse. We just get no discounted power. So.
Are we making any representations? Because the risk that I was thinking of is litigation risk. They're going to be small, but plaintiffs' attorneys find a way to litigate. That's what they do for a living. And so, for instance, are we making representations about how monies will be used, or the nature of the contracts? Is there anything that puts us at risk because we make an affirmative representation and attestation of some kind?
We don't. However, we do answer some basic disclosure questions leading up to the bond sale. We are not the credit risk inside of the bond transaction itself. The funding recipient is. However, if we, our disclosure is inaccurate and we have fully vet it with all of our staff and then through our disclosure council before getting that out into the bond offering document. So that is a potential risk. But again, we are not the credit risk. So the investor's not really looking at us and the ratings agencies are not looking at us as the credit risk for the bond transaction. I will say that, the funding recipient is basically agreeing to pay back the funds over a period of time to the underwriter. And that is the ultimate credit risk. So, again, just as one of the banks that underwrite these, something could happen. That could also happen to the funding recipient, which, is it likely? Don't know. So.
Okay, so I think that gives me at least a comfort right now. I know that this is probably the fourth one of these that I've seen. Please continue adding if there's something
I
else.
just want to add one other thing. We do the representation we do make is that we have load to serve. And so inside of these transactions, we need to make sure that we have the load to serve. And because we've prepaid for power, if power does not show up from the resources, like, intermittent resources, solar, wind, we do have to do what's called remediation. So we do have to go into the market and buy power from time to time to actually take delivery of an amount that we've already prepaid for, so if that makes sense. So we have committed to buy a certain amount of power somehow, some way, whether it's from the renewable resources in the deal or from a market to balance, like maybe 1 or 2 days a month if for some reason it doesn't show up.
Thank you, Chair. I am supportive.
Okay. All right. Any other questions from my colleagues at this time? I'm looking at my colleagues online to see if there's any questions. Any comments from the CIC on this topic? Was this discussed? No? Okay. Let's turn to
the question.
Sorry?
Make a motion.
Well, I think we have to do public comment, and then I will come back to you. Thank you. So is there any public comment on this item?
There are no hands raised in the attendee area or in the room.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close public comment. And I believe that Director Barrientos would like to make a motion.
Okay, I move approval.
Second.
Okay, so moved by Director Barrientos and seconded by Director Tregub. And any other comments at this time? Let's go ahead and vote.
Great, thank you. Livermore.
Aye.
Berkeley.
Aye.
Alameda County.
Aye.
Albany.
Yes.
Emeryville.
Aye.
Fremont.
Aye.
Hayward.
Aye.
Oakland.
Aye.
Pleasanton.
Aye.
Stockton. Tracy.
Aye.
Union City.
Aye.
San Leandro.
Aye.
And Piedmont.
Aye.
Motion's approved.
Great. Okay, quickly. Agenda item number 16 is board member and staff announcements, including requests to place items on future board of directors meetings agendas. One of the items we actually already talked about in our discussion about the budget. Any announcements you'd like to
I
make?
did want to make two quick announcements.
Okay, great.
One is that we have an e-bike test and ride event in Oakland on June 27th from 11 to 3. So this is the second of our events where we're going to invite customers in to experience e-bikes and try to determine if they want to seek our rebate. And then the other announcement I wanted to share, which I forgot to put on our CEO report, is just to note that June 1 is our annual anniversary of serving our customers. So as that has just passed, that is our 8th year of serving customers, where we launched back in 2018. So really excited by that. We are ambitious with what we want to do, but 8 years is a short amount of time. So I think we've accomplished a tremendous amount. Really excited to continue to deliver on the various priorities that we've talked about.
Okay, any other announcements at this time? All right, our next board of directors meeting will be held on Wednesday, July 15th at 6 p.m. in this room. And I hereby adjourn the meeting at, did I miss something? No, okay, adjourn the meeting at 9:06 p.m. Thank you.